According to Yoruba tradition, a young person quoting proverbs in the presence of adults must do so humbly and respectfully. Therefore, in line with tradition, I humbly crave the indulgence of my parents and Yoruba elders worldwide before going ahead with this episode. Thank you for your time. Let's get to it. So the first proverb I have says, Otoki egun le ni loko agbado, èwo ni tipa koko láàrin ìlú. It might be seemly for a masquerader to chase one off a corn farm, but it is not seemly for pakoko to chase one in the middle of town. Otoki egun le ni loko agbado, èwo ni tipa koko láàrin ìlú. It might be seemly for a masquerader to chase one off a corn farm, but it is not seemly for pakoko to chase one in the middle of town. So in this proverb, it's describing the case where scarecrows are placed on farms to discourage animals, birds, and even sometimes humans, because depending on the time of day, the scarecrows can look like a statue that is scary enough to discourage someone trying to steal corn from the corn farm. So that is all well and good because the scarecrow or the masquerader in some cases is doing his job, scaring people off a corn farm if you don't have a business on that corn farm. However, what is not seemly is for a masquerader to be chasing one in the middle of town, especially when it is not masquerade festival season. So this one means someone who is in no position to exercise authority over another should not presume to do so. A masquerader is not in a position to exercise authority over someone in the middle of town. The same masquerader is in a position to exercise authority in a corn farm. Otoki egun le ni loko agbado, èwo ni tipa koko láàrin ìlú. It might be seemly for a masquerader to chase one off a corn farm, but it is not seemly for pakoko to chase one in the middle of town. The next proverb says, Ó yẹ ẹni gbogbo kó sọ pé iṣu ò jiná, kò yẹ alubata. Everyone has a right to say the yam is not well cooked, but not the bata drummer. Ó yẹ ẹni gbogbo kó sọ pé iṣu ò jiná, kò yẹ alubata. Everyone has a right to say that the yam is not well done, but not the bata drummer. So in this case, there is someone who drums bata drums. And in the case of the bata drum, wherever there is someone beating the drum, people dance. And when people are dancing, they are more likely not to pay attention to what is being cooked on the fire. So in this case, there's food being made, and typical Yoruba settings, at the end of a long day, people gather around, maybe around the fire, or maybe in the center of the compound, and they just, relax, unwind. Someone who is good on the bata drum starts to drum, people start to dance. The people who are in charge of cooking the yam, they end up not paying attention to the yam. But by the time the food is done, everyone is allowed to say, oh, this yam is not well done. However, the bata drummer, who is responsible for distracting everybody from focusing on the yam, is not in a position to say, oh, this yam is not done, because he or she is responsible for the yam not being done in the first place. So people should not be too quick to complain about conditions that they helped to engineer. Ó yẹ ẹni gbogbo kó sọ pé iṣu ò jiná, kò yẹ alubata. Everyone has a right to say the yam is not well cooked, but not the bata drummer. The next proverb says, Ó yẹ ni gbogbo kó dínwó aró, kò yẹ àtọ̀ọ́lé. It is fitting for everyone to bargain to reduce the cost of dyeing clothes, but not the bedwetter. Ó yẹ ni gbogbo kó dínwó aró, kò yẹ àtọ̀ọ́lé. It is fitting for everyone to bargain to reduce the cost of dyeing clothes, but not the bedwetter. So in this case, the person who dyes clothes and makes different patterns on clothes and dresses and shirts, and people approach them to come dye their clothes for them. The people that approach the tie and dye maker can bargain to reduce the cost of making the tie and dye. However, someone who is a bedwetter and is approaching the tie and dye maker to dye his or her clothes to hide the marks of bedwetting, that person should not bargain to reduce the cost of making tie and dye, because this person is in a desperate need of something and something to cover their shame. That person is not in a position to be picky and finicky and choosy. So in other words, beggars cannot be choosers. You're approaching someone to make tie and dye for you to cover the fact that you just bedwetted. That kind of person should not bargain to reduce the cost of making tie and dye. Ó yẹ ni gbogbo kó dínwó aró, kò yẹ àtọ̀ọ́lé. It is fitting for everyone to bargain to reduce the cost of dyeing clothes, but not the bedwetter. The next proverb says, Ó yẹ ni gbogbo kó sọ pé Ọlọ́run á ṣe kan má kù, kò yẹ àkúkò. Everyone can justifiably say, God has left nothing undone, but not a eunuch. Ó yẹ ni gbogbo kó sọ pé Ọlọ́run á ṣe kan má kù, kò yẹ àkúkò. Everyone can justifiably say that God has left nothing undone, but not a eunuch. So this one is a funny proverb that has a very deep meaning. So eunuchs all over the world are usually men who castrate themselves in service of, mostly in service of religion. So now we have a case where people are saying God Almighty leaves nothing undone. And then a eunuch is stepping up to say the same thing. God Almighty leaves nothing undone. Well, in the case of the eunuch, God really left nothing undone, but the eunuch went and undid something that God did by removing his reproductive organ, to then turn around and say, I want to go serve in a religious capacity. That kind of person shouldn't use the phrase God who leaves nothing undone, because he undid something that God did. So people should not act as though they are unaware of their flaws, especially flaws that are self-inflicted. So like I said, this one is a very funny proverb that is equally as deep as it is funny. Ó yẹ ni gbogbo kó sọ pé Ọlọ́run á ṣe kan má kù, kò yẹ àkúkò. Everyone can justifiably say God has left nothing undone, but not a eunuch. So the last proverb says, Odò kékeré lálákàn ti lè fọ epo, bó bá di àgàdàǹgbà tán, odò á gbé alákàn lọ. It is only a small stream that the crab can make it oil. When it becomes huge and swift, the river sweeps the crab away. Odò kékeré lálákàn ti lè fọ epo. Bó bá di àgàdàǹgbà tán, odò á gbé alákàn lọ. It is only in a small stream that the crab can make its oil. When it becomes huge and swift, the river sweeps the crab away. So this one is another deep proverb that is describing the fact that when things are easy and rosy, there is little that one cannot attempt because times are easy and rosy. An equivalent proverb is storms determine who is a skilled sailor, not calm seas, or something to that effect. So the crab can make its oil in a gentle flowing stream that is not disturbing the crab's activity of making its oil. But when that stream becomes a river, a fast flowing river, both the crab and the oil become swept away. So crabs can boast to be able to make oil only if the stream is not a fast flowing river. Odò kékeré lálákàn ti lè fọ epo. Bó bá di àgàdàǹgbà tán, odò á gbé alákàn lọ. It is only in a small stream that the crab can make its oil. When it becomes huge and swift, the river sweeps the crab away. So that's all I have for this episode of the Yoruba Proverbs podcast. If you've benefited from this episode, if you feel like this podcast as a whole is adding some value, please kindly share the episode, the podcast, depending on whichever platform you are using to listen right now. You can send the podcast to whoever you think might also learn a thing or two. You can share on WhatsApp, you can share on text messages, you can share however you want to share, email, and so on. So again, thank you once again for being part of this, which is a learning process for me as well. And like I said in the beginning, a young person quoting proverbs in the presence of elders must do so humbly and respectfully. So I crave the indulgence of my parents, Yoruba elders worldwide, as I narrate and break down and analyze these proverbs from my own perspective. And of course, none of these proverbs are definitively translated in one way or the other. The whole concept behind this is to glean the wisdom and the knowledge that our elders keep passing down to us. And this podcast is basically doing just that, so that we just pass on that knowledge as much as we can to as many people as possible, especially in this day and age where the younger ones don't even want to learn the language anymore, and they would rather be on social media and so on. So anyway, thank you so much. Talk to you next time. Bye for now.